AT&T stock has been a mess over the years, and that's no secret. I personally did make some decent money on it, but I had to really navigate my way through so many changes and updates with the company, the stock, and even the dividend, which is now yielding over 8% because the stock has crashed by so much. But that dividend is actually scheduled to be cut by around half sometime in 2022 when they spin off Time Warner to combine it with Discovery to form a new kind of media powerhouse company that is separate from AT&T's core business. And we'll talk about all of that in today's video, but as it stands, AT&T stock is just one of the ones that I get asked the most about on my channel when I read through the comment section, because just things change so frequently with the company. And because I actually own the stock myself, a lot of times viewers ask me for an update on everything that's going on and how I feel about it and where do I think the company is headed in the future. Do I plan to buy more stock? Do I plan, especially considering now that the stock is down over 40% in the past 5 years, the stock has crashed a lot. Dividend yield is way up there, but of course it's scheduled to be cut in half. So how do I feel about all of that? Do I plan to buy more stock and maybe also own the stock of the new company that is coming out of it? Do I plan to just hold my position, or do I think that I should just sell out of it completely because it's just too big of a headache to really keep track of in my portfolio? Well, I'm going to do my best to address that entire situation in today's video. We'll run through the company, all the changes, everything that's coming out of it. I'll let you know where I think they're headed in the future, if I think the dividend is safe once it gets cut, and if it's even worth it. I'm going to talk to you guys about all of that in today's video. It's going to be a fun one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please hit the like button if you do, but let's get started. What's up, everyone? My name is Ale. Welcome back to my world of stocks. All right, let's go ahead and just start by pulling up the stock chart. Let's do a quick little recap of what's been going on with the stock and the company at large, and we'll just kind of go from there. All right, well, taking a quick look at the stock, we can see that it's been pretty volatile over the past decade, but that's mostly been in the $20 and $30 ranges, although they did briefly jump up above 40 a couple times. But if we zoom into the past 5 years, we can see that they initially crashed back down to the 20s around the start of 2019, which is where I actually started to buy the stock myself at less than $30 a share because I was getting a dividend yield of over 7% at that price. And the reasons for that crash in particular was mostly due to the whole cord cutting movement that was causing them to lose cable and satellite TV subscribers, as well as their massive $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner, which loaded them with a ton of debt and proceeded to scare off investors. However, I felt that they were still generating plenty of cash flow to keep paying their high dividend, and I also felt that going into the video streaming market with HBO Max, thanks to the Time Warner acquisition, was a necessary move to make in order to transition away from satellite TV, which they eventually sold off to another company. So again, I bought the stock just for the huge dividend and because I felt that the stock was oversold at that price, given the potential of HBO Max and how they were adapting to the changing market trends. And at that time, I was proven to mostly be right with my predictions because the stock proceeded to climb back up to around $40. So it was going really well for me as I was up around 30 to 40% on my position, and while still collecting a dividend yield of over 7% on top of it. But that's when everything started to crumble. The 2020 stock market crash caused by the global health crisis sent the stock crashing back down to the 20s. Then it recovered a little back into the 30s as investor confidence was returning into the market. But then AT&T decided to shock everyone by making a huge announcement that would completely change the company's structure along with their dividend. And that sent the stock crashing back down in 2021 all the way to the low 20s, which is where they still mostly hang around today, down over 42% in the past 5 years. Now, that announcement was to spin off Warner Media, which also includes HBO Max, and combine the new company with Discovery, giving AT&T over $40 billion that they will use to pay down their massive debts. It's going to really help them reduce their debt levels, but it also leaves AT&T with no video streaming service or the giant media business of Time Warner, and as a result, they were also planning to cut their dividend by about half, which at the time had been grown for 36 years in a row. So it was a really big shock to all of us AT&T investors who mostly owned the stock for that dividend that was now going to be getting cut in half. And as a result, I actually sold over half of my own position at around $32 and $30, which was still a profit because my average cost basis is lower than that at around $28 a share. But of course, since then, the stock has crashed by even more, and I am now down on my remaining position by about 15% today. And overall, my position went from being like the fourth largest stock in my portfolio, having a ton of influence, a lot of weight in my portfolio, all the way down to just around like number 15 today. So it's a much smaller position that I was actually planning to hold on to long term because I figured after adjusting it kind of reduced my risk a little bit. Also, AT&T as a standalone company with their core business of wireless and internet, I felt would still be generating a ton of cash, and they claim to still be willing to pay a dividend after cutting it by about half midway through 2022 after spinning off and merging Time Warner with Discovery. But on top of that, AT&T shareholders would also get 75% ownership of the newly merged company in the form of new stock. And I did feel like that new company would be a media powerhouse with the likes of Time Warner, Discovery, and of course HBO Max streaming, which I feel had a lot of potential and was going to now have a ton of content to really fuel it. So that was kind of my thoughts going out of all of this, was reduce my position but still hold on to it long term because I still felt like there was some potential there. But that's everything that has happened so far, and that leaves us to kind of where we are today. So where do we go from here? What are some updates with the company? How are they doing? And do I still think that the dividend is sustainable? And do I think that AT&T stock is a buy at these lower levels? And for people who do not already own the stock, or people who do own the stock like myself, what do I think is the best move going forward from here? Well, to give my opinion, I just want to quickly run through some facts. So as of right now, AT&T stock has crashed to one of the lowest prices we've seen in over a decade, which has now left their valuation at just a 7 non-GAAP P ratio that is 60% cheaper than the rest of the sector. It also leaves their dividend at over an 8.5% yield, which to my knowledge is near a record high for them as well. And even when that dividend gets cut, it's still going to yield around 4 to 5% at these prices, which is very competitive to similar stocks. For example, Verizon currently yields about 4.8%, which is right in line with what AT&T will likely pay, and T-Mobile doesn't even pay a dividend. Speaking of competitors, though, we might as well also talk a little bit about AT&T's business and whether or not they'll be able to afford that dividend over the long term. Well, first of all, AT&T is a cash-generating machine, and that will still be the case even if you just take their communications segment alone after the spinoff. As of the third quarter, communications brought in over 70% of their sales, and the percentage is almost the same for profits as well. So if we cut down their current free cash flow by around 30%, they would still be generating something of around $19 billion of cash a year. The dividend payout is about $15 billion right now, and they plan to cut that by about half to around $8 billion. So $8 billion out of $19 billion, you're talking about a payout ratio of less than 50%. And in my opinion, that is extremely safe for the dividend, even after the spinoff of Warner Media with Discovery, and it still leaves them cash to continue investing and even paying down debt. And that large profitability, in my opinion, I think is not likely to disappear. AT&T is already the number one largest carrier in the US at about 45% market share, while Verizon and T-Mobile are both significantly lower at less than 30% each in what is essentially a triopoly in the market. Now, the negative of that is that you're likely not going to get any growth. In fact, because of the global health issue destroying the economy, along with all the other issues that AT&T was already facing, their sales are actually in a slight decline for both 2020 and 2021 before the Time Warner spinoff takes place around mid-2022. Personally, I do think things will start to rebound from here because a lot of those losses were due to movie theaters being shut down for so long, which Time Warner controls the second most market share of, only behind Disney. But meanwhile, AT&T's 5G rollout should help keep their core business of wireless and internet remain strong. In fact, mobility sales actually increased by double-digit percentage last quarter, driven by upgrades of equipment and services, which is likely due to a combination of 5G upgrades along with more people spending time on their phone during the global health issue, although there's other reasons why too. But the great thing about their business is that phone and internet have become so essential to everyday life that if you're looking for a dependable dividend stock long term, well, the chances of AT&T's business falling apart are very slim. Even during recessions, these are services that people tend to still rely on and are willing to pay money for. And we saw exactly that even through the Great Recession, where sales were very strong considering the circumstances. Plus, you still get the new stock of Time Warner merged with Discovery, and there's even a lot to like there as well. Sure, it's not going to pay a dividend, but they'll at least have an exciting business with HBO Max that'll now have access to over 100 different brands, including Warner Brothers, DC, HBO, Discovery Channel, Food Network, Cartoon Network, Animal Planet, TNT, TBS, CNN, and more, adding up to a library of around 200,000 hours of programming. According to Antenna, it will immediately make them the third most market share competitor, give them the third most market share in premium video streaming, only behind Netflix and Disney. And Discovery CEO, who will eventually lead the newly merged company, he even said that he believes they will reach 400 million subscribers over the long term. That's up from 100 million that they have today. So you're talking about like a 4 times, increase in terms of growth. And to give you some context, Netflix currently has around 200 million, Disney has around 100 million, and Amazon has around 200 million Prime subs, with around 175 million of those using Prime Video. So at 400, the new Time Warner Discovery company would be a gigantic player in the streaming market, and that's very exciting to think about as a shareholder if they are in fact able to execute. So just kind of putting it all together, what do I think should be done from here? Well, like I always tell you guys, do your own research, make your own decisions. I'm not telling you what to do. I only share my opinion and let you know what I'm doing myself. But when I look at it here, I think when we add everything up, what we've got is a currently high yielding dividend stock that generates a ton of stable, reliable cash. They've got a stable and reliable business with internet and phone. And then you've also got the growth potential of video streaming. Of course, now we're going to be breaking that apart. So the dividend is going to get cut by about half, but it's still going to be a fairly high yielding dividend, and one that I think is going to be very sustainable. So I don't think that's going away. And then you're also taking away the kind of media side of it, and you're going to make this new company that is merged with Time Warner and Discovery. But that's going to be a big media company. That's going to give them a lot of firepower to compete in video streaming. It's going to really help them stand up against the other big dogs like, Disney and Netflix and Amazon. They kind of need that. So I think some of the moves here are necessary. And of course, as an AT&T shareholder, you'll still get some of that stock too. So there's not really a whole lot to complain about here. I think the biggest issue is that the dividend is getting cut. If you only owned AT&T stock, which I mostly did, just for the dividend, then yeah, that is a big blow when you're getting that dividend cut by about half. But there are things to like about this. There are positives here. Some would argue that some of these moves were necessary. You're going to have more streamlined businesses. You're going to have more firepower in video streaming. You're still going to have the cash generation from the core AT&T business. You'll still have a pretty good dividend yield that is pretty, very competitive, I would say. So what is there really to complain about here? And at the end of the day, you're just going to have more options. You don't have to hold on to the video streaming and the media if you don't want that. You could sell that stock off and just take that money. You could sell off the AT&T stock if you want more growth and you don't like, because let's be honest, AT&T is probably not going to experience very much growth. That's going to be a cash dividend kind of play. That's going to be a stable, reliable cash cow that pays you a dividend. It's not going to have growth. And then if you want growth, you'll have the video streaming, you'll have the media, you'll have that stuff with HBO Max. So you can just kind of pick and choose what you want. And then if you don't really believe in any of the companies, if you think that competition is going to take them out or something, then you know this isn't the stock for you, obviously. But personally, I think there's still a lot to like here. And if I was someone who did not own the stock already, I would buy into it because I do want that dividend. I would like to have some exposure to the HBO Max. I think it's a decent stock to own, especially at today's prices and with how high the dividend is going to be even after the cut and how sustainable I think it's going to be long term. So if I did not own the stock, I would buy at today's levels. Granted, I would probably buy in small amounts just in case it does drop heavily because this is a pretty volatile stock at the moment. The market doesn't really seem to know how to price it. There's still a lot of questions out there. It's difficult to value their business at this time because there's so many changes going on. But if you just kind of think long term, I think it's a decent stock to own. It is one that I would like to have. So I would buy into it in small amounts, which is what I usually do with all of my new positions anyway. And then if it does kind of go down, I'd buy more. Or if I feel more confident in the business, then I buy more. But it's a stock that I'd probably ease my way into. And again, that's if I did not already own the stock. I do already own the stock. So I'll probably just be holding for now. But if it drops more, then I might buy some more because I do like it at today's prices. So that's kind of how I feel. Definitely wouldn't sell myself. I have no intentions of selling. And I like where I'm at with it. So those are my thoughts. I think it's still a decent stock, and I'd love to hear what you guys think down below. So let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree, any stuff I left out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I think that just about does it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.